We may never know why she did it. Erin Patterson giving nothing away as she learnt how long she'd be locked up. At least 33 years. 2 years ago, she sat across from her relatives and watched them eat poison. 3 of them died. The sole survivor, Pastor Ian Wilkinson. They'd only ever been good and kind to her.
I want to say thank you to the many people from across Australia and around the world who, through their prayers and messages of support, have encouraged us.
In the darkest days of his life, Pastor Ian Wilkinson had words of kindness.
We're thankful that when things go wrong, there are good people and services and systems available to help us recover.
Ian's wife Heather, along with Gail and Don Patterson, died after eating Erin's beef Wellington laced with death cap mushrooms in July 2023. Today, Ian read a statement on the steps of Victoria's Supreme Court.
My purpose here today is to give some well-earned thanks,
including to the detectives who unravelled Erin Patterson's web of lies.
They brought to light the truth of what happened with the death of 3 good people. I'm also very grateful for the kindness and compassion they showed us, me and my family, throughout the long process that has brought us to this day. They've done a wonderful job.
Just minutes earlier, inside courtroom 4, Pastor Wilkinson watched the monster who murdered his wife learn her fate.
Your offending involved an enormous betrayal of trust. Your victims were all your relatives by marriage. More than that, they had all been good to you and your children over many years.
It was the first time television cameras were allowed inside Victoria's Supreme Court as Justice Christopher Beale handed down his sentence.
Not only did you cut short 3 lives and cause lasting damage to Ian Wilkinson's health, thereby devastating the extended Patterson and Wilkinson families, you inflicted untold suffering on your own children, whom you robbed of their beloved grandparents.
An extraordinary move for an extraordinary case that's transfixed the world.
I accept the evidence of Ian Wilkinson that you served your guests their meals on 4 grey plates, while your individual beef Wellington was on a smaller, orangey tan-coloured plate.
From before dawn, curious members of the public queued outside the building in a bid to jag a prized seat.
5:30.
Got here early?
I got here early. Yep, wanted to be first in the queue.
Phil's followed the case from the start.
She's a woman, it's the mushrooms, it's a rural town, it's the religious aspects and overtones. The Agatha Christie appeal, a big pot of intrigue and mystery for people.
I think I've been bitten by the curiosity bug. I've got a nursing background and an interest in forensics. The emotional impact of Ian Wilkinson's testimony was really heartbreaking.
So I'm very interested in the case, have been following it. I'm from Newcastle.
Those who couldn't make it watched live in living rooms.
The jury found you guilty of 3 counts of murder.
Officers even in New York.
After a long trial, during which you gave evidence,
You engaged in an elaborate cover-up of your guilt. I find that you disposed of the 4 grey plates on which you served the poisoned beef Wellingtons. You falsely made out that you had fed your children leftover beef Wellingtons with the pastry and mushrooms scraped off. You feigned illness. You disposed of the dehydrator soon after you were released from hospital. You maintained the vague story about sourcing dried mushrooms at an Asian grocery and had the gall to tell police in your recorded police interview that you had been very, very helpful to the health department.
The triple murderer was jailed for life with a non-parole period of 33 years. She'll be 82 by the time she's eligible for release. Erin Patterson will look a lot different if she's ever seen in public again. She'll have at least the next 3 decades to ponder whether she'll ever say sorry to the community she destroyed. As for what drove this stay-at-home country mum to become a killer cook is something we may never know the answer to.
Your failure to exhibit any remorse pours salt into all the victims' wounds. You are likely to remain a notorious prisoner for many years to come.
Despite that, an extraordinary offer of forgiveness from the only person who survived Erin Patterson's evil.
Our lives and the life of our community depends on the kindness of others. I'd like to encourage everybody to be kind to each other.
What a phenomenal human Ian Wilkinson is, and Sam Cucchiara joins me. Sam, I tell you what, it takes a special kind of person to forgive someone who has taken so much from you. How was it being in that courtroom so close to Erin, knowing it was likely the last time any of us will ever see her again?
Look, it was quite a calm but eerie mood inside that courtroom today, Ali. Erin virtually showed no emotion during the 45-minute sentencing hearing. In fact, she sat throughout most of it with her eyes closed, appearing like her mind was simply elsewhere. That all changed, though, at one point when the judge started talking about the intense media interest this case has garnered around the world, and Erin Patterson's eyes suddenly opened. They darted across the room to the press box in the corner, and she started staring intently at the journalists in the room. Soon after that, it was all over. She learned her fate. She was taken away, and I can tell you tonight she's back in solitary confinement at the protection unit here at the female prison in Victoria.
Sam, you did the only interview with Erin in the days after she callously murdered 3 people. If you go back to that day, did you believe what she was telling you? She seemed so emotional.
Look, it certainly did appear like Erin was quite emotional that day, Ali, 2 years ago. But really, I think before that interview was even over, I knew that this was all a great performance. I knew that Erin Patterson was not a victim. I've actually interviewed one other murderer before, and the same chills I got down my spine while speaking with that man I got when speaking with Erin 2 years ago. She appeared as though she had rehearsed some of the things she was saying to me. She appeared to be in hysterics, she appeared to be wailing, but when you looked a little closely at her, there were just no tears.
I'm devastated. I love them. And I can't believe that this has happened, and I'm so sorry.
Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, I say I didn't do anything. I love them. And I'm devastated that they're gone. And I hope with every fibre of my being that Don pulls through. That's
Where
what I
did the
have to say.
mushrooms come from?
That was the question he didn't answer. Sam, you've been talking to international news organisations today. Why do you think this story is so big?
Yeah, a couple of reasons, Ali. I think a lot of people around the world are trying to comprehend how somebody can be so evil, so calculated, so cunning to plan something like this and essentially wipe out an entire family over a single lunch. I think before all of this, Erin Patterson was an ordinary stay-at-home mum of 2 from country Victoria, who virtually became one of the most infamous cooks in the world overnight, and also the weapon that she used to murder her estranged husband's family. It wasn't a gun, it wasn't a knife, but rather it was poison, and poison from one of the most unsuspecting of places, mushrooms.
Yeah, and keeping in mind here too, Sam, the ripple effect of her actions, not just those killed, her own kids. I mean, knowing that their mother is capable of such evil.
Yeah, look, your heart really goes out to Erin Patterson's 2 kids who'll not only grow up without their mum around, but also without their grandparents who've been so cruelly robbed from them. Erin Patterson's 2 kids will be in their 40s by the time she's eligible to apply for parole. Of course, they weren't here at court today, and neither was their husband, their father, Erin's estranged husband, Simon Patterson. But at the heart of all of this, Ali, we must remember that 2 families and their communities have been ripped apart by this tragedy, so our hearts go out to them tonight.
Yeah, and what possessed her to do what she did, I think we'll be debating for a long time. Thank you, Sam. Well, as the sentencing played out in a Melbourne court today, the town where it all began watched on, tainted by this horrific crime. Another chapter of this emotional journey coming to an end.
It's a lack of remorse, isn't it?
It's probably not a nice thing to say. I just think she should be locked up for life.
Leongatha, a town of about 6,000 people, forever tied to tragedy.
It's very emotional. I feel very emotional about it, actually. I feel very sad for her children, the community. It's been a very long journey.
As Erin Patterson was sentenced 130 kilometres away at the Supreme Court in Melbourne, locals in her hometown watched on.
For the murder of Heather Wilkinson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Gail Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Don Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. All sentences are to be served concurrently. The total effective sentence is life imprisonment, and I fix a non-parole period of 33 years.
Wow.
Murray has lived in Leongatha with his family for decades.
What do you think about that? 33 years non-parole period.
Yeah, well, she'll be 81 and a half.
Yeah.
When she can get parole, so...
And then most of that time is going to be sentenced.
I thought she should have got life without parole because she'd shown no remorse.
Yeah.
Would you please remove Ms Patterson?
Erin will be in her 80s if she's ever released, but those in her hometown will still remember her name.
Seems a long way away to you, but I'm 70, and yeah, you still want to be alive at 81 and a half.
The lunch that claimed 3 innocent lives put Leongatha on the map for all the wrong reasons.
Everybody has talked about it, and wherever you have travelled, we have actually even been overseas, and someone says, where do you come from? And we'll say, Leongatha, and they've got no idea. And you say the mushroom lady, and they say, oh yeah, I've read about that, which is amazing.
And it's not just Leongatha that became a household name, but nearby Korumburra, where sole survivor Pastor Ian Wilkinson still preaches at the local church, and Morwell, which saw the world's media take over during Erin's murder trial.
Even Erin's home has become somewhat of a tourist attraction. People travelling from far and wide to see the house where that fateful lunch took place.
I've had in-laws from New Zealand come.
Yeah.
And I've taken them to show them the house.
Yeah.
They're fascinated with it over there.
But how does this community begin to heal?
It's sort of a relief in some respects for us because we've got 3 people who are dead, we've got people who are grieving, we've got people who just want to move on from this debacle.
Mayor of South Gippsland, John Schelling, says his community will put this behind them.
We'd all like to be known for something good, you know. We'd all like to say the Leongatha Football Club's going into its 9th grand final in a row. So that's what people want to be known for. They want to be known for positives, not negatives.
And while the ripple effects of her heinous crimes will continue to be felt,
To think that it could happen in a very small community is... You never know what people are capable of, do you?
today closes a painful chapter in this town's story.
Time to move on.
Yes, move on. Let's move on.
Yeah, and as one local just put it there, you never know what people are capable of. Defence lawyer Ruth Parker has represented some of the country's most high-profile and notorious criminal cases. She joins me now. Ruth, life plus life plus life plus 25. How does that equal 33?
Well, Ali, when you are sentencing somebody for multiple offences, you do have to sentence them per the individual offence. And so essentially what His Honour did was said, well, for each of the murders, I give you the maximum sentence, which is life, which was to be expected. And then in relation to the attempted murder, a sentence of 25 years. The difficulty with this case has always been trying to assess whether His Honour was going to fix a non-parole period, and today he did. And so she will have to serve 33 years before she's eligible for release.
So, but even just having that potential date for freedom, right? I mean, yes, she'll be 82, but the prosecution pushed for her to never be released. So what was behind the judge's decision?
Well, the main factor that His Honour relied upon was her conditions in custody. And there is case law through the Court of Appeal that if you're being kept in solitary confinement conditions, and in her case, it could be indefinite. She could spend years in those conditions, and that has to be taken into account. And so what His Honour said was, by virtue of the likely duration that she will be in solitary confinement and the effect it will inevitably have, he will fix a non-parole period. But importantly, Ali, it'll be a matter for the Adult Parole Board whether she actually gets parole. She will just be eligible in the 33 years.
Because it's the toughest sentence for a female killer in Victoria. Do you think it's a fair sentence?
Look, I think it's a very fair sentence. I think that there was a real prospect that the prosecution would be successful in their submission and that she would receive a total effective sentence of life without the possibility of parole. And it was a terrible sentencing exercise for His Honour to have to engage in, because how do you put a value on a human life? How do you weigh up all of the competing factors? And ultimately, he found that she should receive a non-parole period, but she will be a very old woman by the time she's eligible for release.
So interestingly, Erin didn't put forward any argument at the sentence. There were no letters from supporters, no doctor or psych reports. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that when you've run a lengthy trial and you've pleaded your innocence and you've given evidence to the effect that you didn't do it and it was a mistake, it's always a very, very hard thing at the conclusion of a trial, if you have a client who's found guilty, to then run a plea hearing, because you can't rely on remorse or contrition or insight. And also, when you have been convicted of such heinous, calculated, premeditated offending that took the lives of 3 vulnerable people, there is really not a lot you can say about her character that is going to hold much weight with the court.
But if this was you and one of your clients, surely you would have called in a psychologist.
Look, it's an interesting thing that she didn't have any psychological evidence. We can only speculate as to why that was. I would have thought that there would have been psychological evidence just in relation to the impact that her conditions in custody are having on her and will continue to have on her. But ultimately, the psychological evidence would only take you so far, given what this offending really is. It's extraordinary offending, a case that we've never seen the likes of before, and that's garnished so much attention.
Well, that's it. I mean, the judge noted that Erin wasn't sorry and that she would have known that her victims would suffer terribly. Do you think we'll ever know why she did it?
Look, that's really only ever going to be a matter for her. But what we found out today through the sentencing was that there were multiple occasions where she was asked about the circumstances of the dinner and consistently refused or omitted from her narrative the fact that she had foraged for mushrooms. And His Honour was, I think, quite measured in saying, look, we'll never know whether that information could have saved their lives. But what we do know is that medicine that could have been prescribed to these 3 people who were dying and the person who managed to hold on to his life, but with significant physical injury, would have been given to them earlier had they known the exact source of the toxin. And His Honour was pretty damning in his comments about her and her behaviour in that regard.
So let's talk about what Patterson's life looks like now moving forward. She's back with the worst of the worst. She's in maximum security. As you said, she's isolated 22 hours a day in a very tiny cell. There's no fresh air or outside contact. How different to her old, comfortable life, Ruth?
I mean, you wouldn't find conditions more different. She's a person who is living in a rural setting. It could be years before she ever sees a tree again. The only outdoor access that she has is a concrete courtyard area that is small. She is confined away from other inmates. She's unable to realistically access education and the library, and all of her liberty is taken away. Her decisions as to what to eat, when to eat, when she can leave her cell, when she can access medical services. Really, these are really restrictive conditions for a person who has lived what seems to be quite a comfortable life in a rural setting.
And I tell you what, 30 plus years in those conditions will definitely take its toll. But she has 28 days to appeal her conviction and sentence. Do you think she will?
Look, when you've received a sentence like she has received, you would always be considering what your options are. And ultimately, I expect that her lawyers will be poring over the transcripts of that trial, the evidence, to see whether there is any conviction appeal basis. But the difficulty that they're also going to encounter, Ali, is that everybody knows about this case. Everybody knows that she's been convicted. Now, even if she was to mount a successful conviction appeal, in all likelihood, she would be retried. And for all we know, the outcome would be the same, particularly given what we now know about the offending, which has been released into the public sphere.
Yeah, and I guess we wait again to see if this is truly the end or if there's more to play out in this sad story. Thank you so much, Ruth. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ali.